Hello, creative people. Welcome to Creative Conversations. My name is Hollis Citron, and I am so happy, we are so happy that you have chosen to spend this hour with us. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a backstory on the podcast. This podcast was born from the mission of my company, which is called I Am Creative. And the mission is to expand the definition of creativity beyond a pencil and a paintbrush, and to empower people, especially adults, to realize their talents, which come in so many different forms. And here I get to talk to so many inspiring people that have been in professions and hobbies and have had interests that vary from physics teacher to a holistic marketer, actress, hormone biohacker, and so many more. Our conversations all revolve around three questions. One, how do you define creativity? Two, how do you incorporate it into your life? And three, why do you think that it's important? And then we have a free-flowing conversation and we see where it goes. So my inspiring guest for today, his name is Michael Silvers. And I am hoping that he is going to get this and get online. I sent him a link, so this is the beauty of being live. I may have to, after I give his bio, I may stop and resend the email. So, okay, let me backtrack. So my inspiring guest today is Michael Silvers. Michael is one of the foremost experts in achieving peak performance. He has helped tens of thousands of individuals to create the wealth and engineer the lifestyle that they truly desire. He has shared the stage with many big names such as Tony Robbins and Les Brown and so many more. He has mentored, coached, and trained many in the entertainment industry and has also developed and managed interactive online platforms to produce networking and mentoring communities and support for clients worldwide. He has done so many incredible things. So I am going to message with him. And Sarah, so happy that you are online. Thank you for being here. If you could tell me if it all sounds okay, because I'm using headphones and I want to know how it sounds. So if you could type in the chat box, I would appreciate it. I am waiting for my guest. Okay, great. So Michael, yep, you just have to press the connect or call in button and then you will be in. That was the first stage. And then just that one more. So connect or call or there we go. Yay, Michael.
I can hit buttons. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Really, really good.
Good. I'm so happy that you're here.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to be here. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. So I just read your bio, which you know what you do. Is there anything that you want to add before we dive into the questions?
You know, it's just being more than we could be every single day, creating more, looking at things in a direction that we can get moving, and let's just have fun.
There we go. Let's have some fun. So I like to start off with a would you rather question, and then we'll dive into the first of the three questions. So, Michael, would you rather
Yes.
be without internet for a week or without your phone?
That is I'd rather. That's a really good question.
I figured for you this would be a good one.
Okay. I'm doing the analysis, you see, because actually, I think it was 2 weeks ago now. It might have been my phone died, and iPhones don't die, right? They all said so. My phone died, and so for 2.5, 3 days, I had no phone. And it was like taking a break in a way, even though I could do most on my computer. So I would rather be without the phone than the internet.
Okay. Because you had real life experience and realizing, because
Uh-huh.
it's true, because on the computer you can do so many things. You can even talk through it. So,
You can. That's the thing. You can talk, you can communicate, family can still reach. I mean, you could theoretically do it on your phone if you had, if you have cellular and you have obviously, light or 5G. But there was something freeing for the moment to not have this thing with me all the time.
hmm
Um, and and so I would say no phone.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Agreed. Understood. Okay. So first question, Michael, is how do you define creativity?
So creativity, it kind of there's many different ways, of course, and obviously you've had many guests with different, answers to this.
hmm
But to me, that the really big piece of creativity is finding the thing that you love to do, right? Find that thing that you truly love to do, and then do it in a way that you haven't done before. Because there's a tendency that we get on a path, or we get, I want to go from A to B, and we don't realize that it takes many different steps. It goes right, it goes left. Look at when we went to the moon. We didn't get there straight. So,
hmm
and it was a very creative function that got us there, which was to be able to look at different paths, different directions, different ways to do things, and to bring out the best in yourself. But still find the thing that you love to do, realize it won't be a straight, shot there. And that creativity part starts to come out because you realize there are those sides of ourselves that we can do more than we expect.
hmm
And to me, that's how I look at creativity. It's creating, it's almost like a mastermind. It's creating something from nothing, and really finding that part of ourself that, and it's not, sometimes, and I'll say too, it's not always the thing that you love to do, because you can use creativity in all different directions. But I
hmm
think that creative part, just let it flow, let it go. You have to trust it. You have to be willing to fail, because failure just precedes every learning we've ever had. So when
Yeah.
you're being creative, the greatest creative mind is willing to let the failure happen.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. The words that I really came out to me as you were talking is flow, trust, and fail,
Mm-hmm.
and realizing that it isn't a straight line. That because that's where I see so many people get stuck, is that whole thing of doing something, you mess up, and then you stop, because then it incorporates all those things of, am I good enough? Am I worthy? Am I blah, 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 like all that kind of stuff. But you hit that one little thing of, I messed up, and they're like, oh, okay, I'm done. I can't do it. When that's kind of like just the light, that's just the beginning.
Well, it is, and that's that part that stops you. That's right. We talk about it in all the years of being on stage. If I had let that part, because when you're on stage, you're creative. If you're doing a, let's say, a keynote, and you're reading a speech, there's been a creative moment that has put that speech together. Maybe not by you, but you still bring your greatness to it. When you're training on stage, the whole time you're being creative, the whole time you're moving, because the audience will ebb and flow with their energy and what they're learning and their position at the moment, and you learn to ebb and flow within that, and that really brings out that creative nature, and that when you let it flow, less fear, because it's always, oh my gosh, I just walked in front of 8,000 people. What do I do now? And all the training goes out the window, and then you start to trust the process. And then you realize this is a creative moment. This is a moment that no matter what I think is going to happen, it's never going to be that way. And that's where you let go and just do it. And you really dive into that part of yourself that can do it. It's the same thing on a webinar or a podcast, or, for entrepreneurs. It's setting your intention, setting your goal, and trusting yourself to move forward. And if you don't, that's why we have coaches and mentors and everybody else to help us, who are
Mhm.
hopefully also being creative.
I like what you just said, is of whatever I think is basically, it's not going to happen that way. So I forget exactly how you just said it, but I just kind of giggled inside when you said that.
Well, that's, it's so true, because we'll train, right? People will say, well, I trained for years. I've gone through, because sometimes in a lot of the speaker courses, it's part of the training is what's your worst situation, and we'll play that out. We'll play out the worst situation, the obnoxious crowd, the drunk crowd, the people throwing things at you. We go through it all, and we sort of act it out, but it's never the same as when you walk up on stage, because once you're there, it's even on, people were having Zooms, right? When Zoom really was popping, back at the first of the pandemic. Now we've been on Zoom for years, but when Zoom, Zoom is now $118 billion cap. But when Zoom was, and people would pop on and they'd be naked, and it really threw a lot of the speakers. And I'm like, okay, stop. What if you're on stage? What would you do to handle that? The beauty you have about Zoom is you can kick them off. When you're on stage, true. You have to sort of signal your team to gently remove them from the facility. But right. I said, so in a way, and how did you use that within the training? For the rest of you, as you really see yourself, how do you see yourself in a mirror? And do you see yourself as the you who you are? Do you see yourself without clothes? Or, as you start down any journey, you start out as a naked baby. I mean, you can use it so many ways.
It's true.
So, and that's creative.
It's incredibly, it's that you're making me think of, so in teaching, so I've been teaching for 30 years and in lots of different scenarios, and nothing can train you for, my daughter's calling. Nothing can train you for a situation where you're teaching and all of a sudden a fight breaks out in the hallway and it is coming. There is nowhere else for them to come but into your room. And all of a sudden there's 50 people in your room brawling and jumping over things. And it's like, wow, this was not in my teacher training. You learn, you deal. It's like you realize that so many things that you were quote unquote, taught in the classroom or even in role playing, you just realize it's just like you said, it's not necessarily going to go that way.
Right. And it sure was not in your teacher plan or your education plan for the day. It was not even scripted in there.
What happens when a kid decides that they've had enough and picks up a whole bunch of pencils and throws them across the room and one goes in your eye?
Right.
What do you do in that situation?
Right. You start to draw out all the possibilities. We call them what ifs, right? The what if this, what if that, and you can only do that to a point, and it doesn't make any sense. We actually see, and I'm a grandpa, so I can tell stories, everyone. But we did an event at Ali Pali in London, and we had 5,000 people. Now Ali Pali is really long, so it's like 5,000 people long. It's not wide, so you are far from the stage. And all of a sudden, in one of the back doors comes this man and woman, and she's carrying a drum, and she starts drumming. And he's carrying literally like a whole tree. I've never seen anything like it.
A tree?
A tree. It's about 15 minutes outside of, main London. But yeah, and they're running around. She's drumming and he's carrying the tree, and they're obviously doing some ceremony. And our trainer's on stage, and we're walking the back. And you just got to deal with it. So we politely ushered them out, but they were moving really fast. So one of our trainers from Australia, because most of our trainers were Aussies, all of a sudden you saw the Aussie in action because he just went and tackled them. It was the most amazing thing ever. Right, tree and all. So, and then our trainer used it in the training, right? As you hear the drums of the sounds of you hear the sounds of the rest of your life, the beating that moves you forward. I mean, he used the whole thing, right? And as you plan something and raise it up, it was just great. And that's where you use that side of yourself.
Wow. Yeah, it's problem solving. I'm also seeing it as it's like you're constantly problem solving, and again realizing that you're going to make mistakes. I guess it's kind of like I'm in storytelling mode, but it takes me back to like 5th grade when I was really shy and standing in front of the class, and we had to read the books that we wrote. And I was like standing in front of the group, and all of a sudden all of the pages fell all over the place. And they just went
Yeah.
everywhere. And I just stood there and went, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't even remember what happened after that. I think I blanked and whatever happened. But, now I can see myself as adult Hollis kind of laughing and just being like, okay, I'm going to tell you the short version of the story since it's not all in order or something.
Right. And it's interesting about memory too, because we all have those memories of why we're here and what brought us here. But the fascinating thing, if you really look at the brain structure of what's gone on recently, is we used to think when we remembered something like that, it was exactly the way it was, but it's not. Because every time you take it out of the shelf, think of a book in the library, you're pulling it off the shelf. But when you put it back, you're actually putting it back at a different volume because you've added everything you are today. So the memory, every time you pull it off and bring it back, changes because you add perceptions, concepts, ideas, thoughts of today, which is fascinating because that's how learning sort of compounds upon each other. At the same time, it is something we can still use. We can pull it from the shelf and we can use those experiences. People love metaphors and stories. So I always tell anybody in any industry, I don't care what industry you're in, even if you own a Hallmark store or you're an attorney, stories drive people. Stories help people understand in a way they didn't before because they can create a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So we teach a lot of that. And that's really great too because if I'm telling a story, because I used to tell stories from stages, I still do, or tell stories about my intro. I do an 18-minute intro, but it's a whole story. I weave the path to create a relationship with the audience or the virtual whoever I'm with.
Mm-hmm.
But I realized I might not remember it exactly the way it is, but it's who I am now. And it's that side of ourselves and if I make a mistake, let it go. And look, we're humans, right? Hollis, we're humans. We fail, we get caught. We have that momentary, or if we feel we're in trouble, no matter how old we are, we either have two responses. We either pull away from it or we dive into it, depending on what our nature is. And it's getting through those first responses that then you can take the breath, do what you need to do. And that's the side that can launch and have you become more than you were, especially in business. It's learning to oof and then move forward.
Love that. That is like, yeah. And what you said about, I'm going to try something. You're going to tell me if you can hear me okay. I'm going to take off these headphones that I'm wearing because it sounds weird to me. So hold on. Okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay, good.
I can hear me too, then.
So, yeah, I can. Yours is kind of going in and out a little bit. I don't know if you're moving around. There's it was like a little bit of a weird sound, but I can hear you.
No worries. I can change inputs on that too. So
there we go. Yeah, that's good.
No worries.
So,
no, I'm changing inputs, but keep going.
I love what you said about going back on memories that we had and infusing with who we are now. Well, like when we're retelling the story, we're bringing that into it.
Right.
And
that makes a difference here on.
Think of that before, and that's really, I really love that.
And it makes us, it really. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yep.
Okay. It really makes us, who we are. It creates that part of ourself that, this is who I am, accepting who I am, and then moving forward from that. And I think a big piece too in this that is, have I been of service? Is that with all the businesses and my wife and I with our coaching divisions and everything we've done around the world, the question always becomes, how have we been of service? How have we made it? Because somebody said, you've trained how many coaches? It's probably, I don't even know, close to 30,000 coaches. I just have to do all the events and all the trainings we've done. And that's just the coaches, not just the students. And I still, every time I walk off that stage of the virtual or did a training with them or rolled out a new program, it was, how have I made a difference? What have I done today for somebody else? And I think when you do that, by the way, I am pacing. I only do calls when I pace. So all my podcasts are pacing. Everything's pacing. It's just, I am, it's the way I've always been. But that's my
Yeah.
creative juice. My creative flow flows when when I'm moving. So my parents actually for years meditated. I actually, a little bit of my background, I grew up at the Zen Center in Los Angeles, which is one of the first Zen centers in the United States. And my parents did a lot of sitting meditation. Well, I was a teenager. I never sat still. I didn't even know what they were really doing. I was a teenager. I was out playing. But,
Right.
for me, meditation and prayer has usually been, there's a lot of movement and motion, and it's just the way I'm triggered. And that puts me into that creative flow. I have learned to sit still. I have learned to be able to pray quietly because I think that's a part of myself that I have to work on. It doesn't mean that's right or wrong. It's just, I think it's a good thing. My gut is saying it's a good thing. But do what I always tell people when you're ready to go into your creative juice or your flow, do what you know best. I mean, that's why they have salesmen put on their greatest rock and roll song before they get on the phone. That's why AC/DC is playing when I get on stage. It anchors a state that puts me in the right mood to do what I need to do.
Yeah. Yeah. That whole idea of that, when you touched on meditation, it doesn't have to be that whole seated thing. It's, you don't have to sit there and be like, you can be moving, you can be walking and be in a meditation. But my husband and I were actually just talking about that and saying how, in the teachings of Bob Proctor and all of that, it's that challenge yourself to, like when you were saying that you do want to incorporate more of the sitting still into you. It's kind of like you need to challenge yourself to do things that you're not as comfortable with, because they're just in life, there are things that you don't want to do.
Right.
Right. So you challenge yourself to get better at that, but it doesn't mean that you deny yourself of the things that, if walking around is your thing, then walking around is your thing, but you can practice a little bit of this thing still, or you know what I mean?
That's right. And I think it's those things that we don't do that really also help us rise, because movement is comfort for me. And I think there's those times that it is, life is, the Buddhists say life is suffering, the Catholics, everybody's got but it's putting ourselves in that situation where I think we always have to become more than we are. So for me, that sitting still at the moment really focuses me in a way. And I have to, though, let go of the focus, right? Because, okay, sit still. That doesn't work because that's all you can concentrate is on. We used to say in NLP, right? In neurolinguistic programming, we used to always say, don't think of the blue tree. No, I don't want you to think of the blue tree. Now, don't think of the blue tree now. No, that's all you can think about. So it's the same thing, in really in business and in motion is, have I also done something to push myself, or am I just living within comfort? Because then you get stuck. It's like the millionaires we work with that are so unhappy because there's a syndrome. When you make your first million, you sort of stop because you become fearful that you're going to lose it. So you hold on and you stop living. And for anybody who starts making more money than they ever have, it could be an extra $500 a month. There's a tendency to just stop and sit there and never make anything more because it's more than you've ever had and you're in a comfort zone. You're also in a fear zone. And, we always say, how do you get out of that? Which is why we always say, hire a coach or mentor or whatever it is. But, we always say the 3 ways to success are 3 coaches, 2 mentors, and a mastermind. And that should be in your life all the time because you're being challenged. Because you'll do more for others than you will for yourself. And so if you go down this creativity path, don't do it alone.
Yeah.
So
it's that whole terror barrier. And when you hit the terror barrier, like you said, you're like, I don't want to lose it. I made the money. I don't want to lose it. Creatively. Oh, I always enjoyed cooking when I was young, but I burnt something and now I really suck at it and I'm not going to do it again. Well, okay, you screwed up. That's what happens. Right. Everybody does it. Move on, and within whatever the creativity is, whether it's public speaking, whether it's a visual art, whether it's cooking, whether it's science, whatever it is, it's going past that somebody told you that you weren't good at it and you held on to that and you really wanted to do it, but you've denied yourself because you were told you weren't good at it. It's that whole cycle.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's that part of ourselves. And also, we've also done that to ourselves.
Right.
It's like,
Right.
my wife and I start out and we're directing our coaching and doing all this and traveling internationally and we're going everywhere and we're on the road. And I still had the fears, even though I'm running this huge coaching division, in all these countries. Am I good enough? Can I do this? Am I really? And then, when Harv Eker threw me on stage in front of 4,000 people, unexpectedly, I had the same. I can't do this, And the best comment ever was, he just looked right at me, and it's like, yes, you can. You've been training and teaching this for over 12 years now. Just come from your heart what you know, and just get up there and get it done. And I did, because I let go.
What did you talk about?
What? So we were in Singapore, and it was a Millionaire Mind Intensive, which is one of Harv's courses, and it was the morning session. There's a breakout session where typically that we have a process we go through. We do a big beehive. There's things to do, but Harv had a training and a call he had to do, and he normally does, but the assistant trainer also had to be on the same call. So they basically looked at me and they said, yes, in 12 hours, you're going on stage. And I had only done small trainings. So, because I ran coaching divisions, I did phone calls, webinar. I could have 10,000 people on webinar. I don't care. But, and so, sweating all night long, nervous. And I thought, I will teach what I know, which is how to get you from point A to B. And I literally, and the stages there are huge. They're like, they're platforms. You're 25 feet in the air or more, and you're walking up. So I said, just don't trip. Right. So of course I almost tripped, and I go up onto the platform, but I started to anchor. I started to my power, my this for the audience. And by the time I got up to the platform, I just started to go. And I did. I taught on actually basic goal setting, but with a flair. How's that? Because I knew what they had learned the day before. And I got off the stage. I got into the audience. And it's literally, you're in a hangar deck. The Singapore Expo, everything's like a hangar deck. They're huge. It can seat probably 20,000 people in there.
Wow.
And I ran from one speaker to the other. Okay, that's not a great idea because I could hardly breathe by the time I got to the other speaker. But, at the same time, I literally let go. The minute, because what I decided is, why am I all the way up here? I'm going down to the audience. And I did. And the minute I did, I could play with them. And I knew there were 7 languages going, and they didn't have any script from me. So I had to go at a certain pace for the translators. And I just let it go. And the other thing was basically, don't sell anything, because it's not a sales point. And I talk so much about coaching, people ran to the back and bought our coaching program. But it's that part of myself that I just had to let it go, but pull on everything that I knew. But still, and I did. I ran. I showed him A to B, and I trained on how you get there and how it looks. I pulled a couple people from the audience, and I interacted, and it went. Well, here's the greatest thing. So I'm finished, right? And when we finish something, we almost want to see how it was, or we want feedback. Sometimes we can't just be, but that's okay. I did, right? I wanted the tape. I wanted the feedback. So I go to the assistant trainer. He's third in line, and all he does is get people up and warmed up. And I said, so Nash, how was it? He's like, I'm so sorry. I was writing notes for the next session. I really didn't watch. I'm like, oh, that's okay. I talked to the assistant trainer. He had been on the call out the door, so he wasn't on it either. Harv wasn't there. So then I go to the camera crew and I say, you know what? Do me a favor. Could I just get a snippet of what I did? Because I'd like to improve and do what you did. And the camera crew looks at me and says, you're not Harv. We didn't film it. Okay. So at that point, I realized it was exactly what it needed to be. And I didn't need the feedback because I just came from the heart and did what I could do. And I really had to let it, because I really wanted to see it, because my ego got a little bit in there too, right? Wow, I was just on stage in front of 4,000 people. I want to see it. I want the video, and I want to improve it. But look what I did, everybody, family. That wasn't going to happen, right? And then when you tell some of your associates, they're like, "No, you did." I'm like, "Yes, I did." But it was that part of realizing it wasn't about me. because from that point on, I've almost never been nervous again on stage. And I'm an introvert. I know, I click on for these calls, but I'm an introvert. And for me, it was, I realized, I pulled it up and I said, this is not about me. It's about all of them. And it's about giving everything that I can. And that's what I did. And for all of you listening to this, whatever field you're in, whatever you do, do it as if, we always say, as if my life depends on it. Do it as if you're doing it for somebody else that you love or care for, somebody you just met on the street, and see what happens next time.
Mm-hmm. So, so incredible. I was getting this vision of almost like you being pushed out of a plane. It's just like you're standing there. You kind of knew it was going to happen. It wasn't like they just told you you're going on stage. You at least had a few hours notice, but you were still there and like, breathe, 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 and then just go.
Right. And this was actually much worse. I wish they had just said, you got 3 minutes, get on stage, because it gave me the time to be in terror. So, right. And right. I had to let that go from that realization. Yeah.
Which is funny because a friend of mine who I love dearly, I've known her since middle school, and she is a planner. She is just that way. And I am a planner, but I'm also like free flowing. And I had her on another conversation, and I really only asked her an hour beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, I'm really glad that we did it this way because I would have overanalyzed it. I'm like, yes, you would have. So
that's right. And that's, think of yourself. I like the plane analogy, by the way. Think of yourself. You're on the plane and you're going to jump for the first time. And the plane gets you up in the air. And then they say, you know what? Actually, the weather's not good. We're going to fly around for the next 12 hours until we decide when we're going to let you go. Right. And you're looking at the plane dip, and you're the winds, and there's clouds, and all of a sudden there's thunderstorms. And they say, on top of it, I don't think you need a chute this time, but we're still not sure when we're going to drop you. That's what it was like for those, and it's that point of, especially, there's two things about planning. That's interesting you bring that up, because it's okay to be planned to a point. I mean, a lot of speakers I work with are fairly planned, realizing it could all go askew very quickly. So it's got both sides. At the same time, that what you said was great. Are you so planned that you can't be spontaneous? Mm-hmm. That you lose? Because when you teach, you need to be spontaneous, whatever you're teaching. Yeah. The spontaneity is where the brilliance comes out in students, because you never know what they're going to say. Right? Remember the show, Kids Do the Darndest Things? I mean, that's what it is.
And you don't know what's going to resonate. It's kind of like you have to be able to switch gears because you can have this idea in your mind that is beautiful. You're like, oh, and it's going to go like this, and we're going to create this. And then you see that the kids or whoever you're teaching is not into it at all. So you're like, okay, pivot. How do I need to pivot this to make it relatable to them, to make them care? Because that's what it is. It's like what you said. It's not about me. Like what Les Brown says, it's not about me. It's about thee. So when you're thinking about your audience, or when you're learning about your audience in the moment, you have to know how to pivot and make them, why are they there? Like, make them care. If you're teaching about snow to somebody who doesn't know about snow and really doesn't care about snow, then you're not going to get much interaction.
Yeah. You start teaching snow to somebody who lives in the desert, it just doesn't translate so well. And if you're so stuck on it, you lose them. You lose them quickly. Yeah. And that's and at the same time also, quotes are important. Like you just with Bob Proctor and Les Brown, and people put out quotes all the time, and Ray Kroc. I know a lot of people don't like him. That doesn't matter. And Henry Ford, and sometimes you just forget the quote, so you better just go through it. That happens all the time, right? Mm-hmm. Or an Abraham Lincoln quote. You're like, so what was the essence of what they were trying to say? Is the other side of being creative and being able to, like Les Brown talks about, okay, if you shoot for the stars, you're going to hit the moon. There's something. But do you always remember the exact quote? But what is the essence of what they're trying to say? That's the learning and the teaching.
Right.
And we tell people all the time, it's like you have the canvas, and the canvas is blank. and what goes on the canvas, it grows from wherever you start. At the same time, what part of you is doing that? Is it your heart? Is it your mind? Have you ingrained the two? But what is the story behind it? What's the essence behind it? It's not painting by numbers. It's really letting yourself flow.
Exactly.
Which is hard for a lot of people.
It is, but it's that whole, before we move on to the second question, it's that whole idea of the canvas in whatever you do, whether you're writing and using your words as a paintbrush, whether you're in business and using your know-how in what you do and using that as a canvas, using that as your brush, because that is your canvas that you're creating in whatever format it is.
Exactly. Yep.
So thank you so much for the people who are joining on. So happy that you're here live. Please feel free to put in the chat box any questions or comments that you have. And our guest today is Michael Silvers, and I'm so glad that he's here. So the second question, Michael, is how do you incorporate creativity into your own life?
I use the old term. Oh God, it's a song now, so let go. I will not sing it, but you have to let go. I think that's that piece with everything that I do. It's not having. I have certain control over things, right? There's a certain community that I'm growing. The Mentor Studio. I have had to let go, because if I don't let go, then it can't become creative. It can't live its own life. And I think that really responds to, so for me, it's a business decision. Do I have to have hands on everything? And it's interesting because with coaching divisions, I was really good at letting go. I was really good at delegating, not things I just didn't like to do, but those who were better than me. You always want to surround yourself with people that are smarter, better, and faster than yourself. That's what Henry Ford did with Ford Motors. He created a mastermind think tank early on. Mark Victor Hansen. I get all the speakers in the big. I mean, this sold 500 million books because they masterminded how to do this thing, and also to be persistent. And I think that's a part of yourself. And people say, "Well, what does that mean? That's not tangible." Blah blah blah. Yes, it is. What is stopping you from getting to that next part? And if you don't let go of those things, or at least move through them. It's like breaking a board in an event that you've done, right? And you think, I can't. You have the people that just, I can't. But you start to show them the other side. Okay. It's not about breaking the board. It's about going through. It's always going through the finish line. You don't get to the finish line. You go through the finish line. And I think that helps you to let that creativity flow. Is you've got to let you don't, that's telling. See, on stage we don't tell, but it would be amazing if you let go. How would you find yourself now in the position you knew you can be in? I mean, it's all of that. So, which is why we do a lot of just like programming, and training, and, Tony doesn't train it, but that's what he uses. And that's why the fire walks. That's why the board breaks. That's why because it is the letting go and realizing I can do more. And continuing to do more.
Right. What are some things that you actually do for yourself, Michael, I know that there's so much you do in your work and so much that you're creating. I mean, you're just forming things and like all the time, and you use your words as like a paintbrush everywhere. But what are some things that you enjoy doing for yourself in some downtime and with your family?
This is easy. So this one, Michael is still the little kid that enjoys things. That's not a problem. And that's part of the discipline of the other side. Though, if you love what you do, like I do, with what I'm doing, it never feels like work. I could do it all the time. What are some things that I do? I love actually spending time with my wife. We can be doing anything. It doesn't matter. It's, being an introvert, it's not about talking, though she's the one I love talking to more than anyone. It's being able to just spend time together. And, I'm a guy, so we could put on Netflix or TV, or there's some comedies we watch together that we love, like Frasier, and that. So for me, that is the decompression time. That's the introvert really refilling his space. I love to spend time with my family. I love to spend time with my grandkids because of the energy around that. And the nerd in me, there was a game in 1999 that launched called EverQuest, which became the online sensation, which is still one of the biggest ever. And still today, I still play it with the same group of 3 or 4 who get on every Saturday night, almost every Saturday, and we play for a couple hours. We chat with each other. We go out on adventures, and it's wonderful. And I've let myself be okay with that. It's what is that thing? As long as it doesn't take away from the mission, the purpose, or the distraction, and that becomes an addiction. That's a whole other story for another day. Because actually, when EverQuest launched, it became such a big sensation. They termed it Evercrack because people were losing their jobs because they were playing it so much.
What is it? I don't even. I was never a gamer, so.
Have you ever heard of Worlds of Warcraft, which most people have? Or
yeah.
So basically, that's what it is. It was the first one really of the genre that popped open. And so it became so huge. Actually, there's a fascinating business story because Sony bought it right away. They saw what was going on and they stepped in, and it became this online sensation where literally, I don't remember how many users they won in the first couple of months, and they were at 1 million so fast. And these were people paying every single month to play.
Wow.
So they realized we have a whole, and that built that whole world of Worlds of Warcraft and all the genre that came after it. And it's still around today, and it still looks like the graphics are a little better, but like 1999. But it's the kind of thing where the game was originally built. Here's the fascinating thing. Think of this for your own business. It was built on community. To win in this game, you really had to do it as a group. You had to group with others to move forward. You could do it alone sometimes, but it went really slow. So you learn to play with other people. You learn to help each other. You learn to be there for each other. And then within about 2 years of launching the game, they thought, people are going to want to just spend more time on their own. And they created other characters, non-player characters who would help you or follow you, or ways you could not have to play with other people. And the membership it almost killed the game because it took away that one thing that it had, which was the community. And so it grew, but it never grew the same. And then it started to die out. Nobody saw that rise again. And that's our search for community with whenever we do. So even as an introvert, I still want some of that community. I don't always want to be face to face. I mean, that's the introvert side of myself. But I still want to be part of a community, and we're moving and achieving and doing something together. And that's the way. I know, long answer to a short question, but that's really the way I decompress.
No, it's
and
perfect.
I take care of myself.
Yeah, but I think that's actually in that what you just said, taking care of yourself. Because introvert, extrovert, whatever you are in whatever role you play in life, you need to have time for you, which is a big part of what I say in my company, which is, I'm creative. It's all about that. It's about finding that thing within you that brings you joy. And which we deny so much. So it's very important for you to be able to have this time to play, EverQuest and, to be able to have that time to be able to chill with your wife, to be able to hang out with the kids and then be on these big stages and, all the things that you do. You need the balance.
Right. It is about balance. At the same time, there's, for business owners and for anybody starting any career or artist, it doesn't matter. There is a time, and there are times that you'll be out of balance. There is that tendency to think that we need to keep everything in balance, and it just won't happen. Because especially like when you're first building a business and you're really driving it, you're out of balance. You're probably going to be, but make sure that you enroll your family around you. I think that's the big piece, is to make sure, that they are engaged somehow in the mission, the vision, so they don't feel just neglected. And that's critical, right? And number two, because we used to do this a lot and 22 years ago, my wife and I went into network marketing. Yeah, she moved me to the right company and we did really well. But a lot of people in that industry just they get in and they don't enroll their partners or their spouses or their family, and they either think they're crazy, they're taking all my money, it's not going to be success. So there's no positive energy around it. And whatever business you're in, enroll those around. They don't have to be in the business. Stop that right away. There's 7 billion people. Go find somebody else. But enroll those around you and really help with their mission, help with, and remember, they still have a mission. We used to say this. We used to send people to like a 3-day big event. They'd get so excited and they'd come home. Oh my gosh, by the way, honey, I'm going to change everything. I'm selling everything and we're going to do everything different. You can't do that. They're not in that space. What you do is you come home and say, if they say, so how was your weekend? It was really great. Now, honey, tell me what you did this weekend, or how was your weekend? Or you got to give it time. You got to give it space. And that's how you work together. You're creating community again. It's all, look at Facebook. We know community works and people want it.
Right. Yeah, it's so true. Yeah, in growing a business, it is very much about, because when you do have the people around you, I have a 17-year-old, a 20-year-old, and my husband, and it is very much kind of about time where you're saying, okay, I'm working on this for this long and this long generally. You can come down and hang out with me, but, I need this time to focus. Or we asked our daughter yesterday, I'm like, Skylar, you're really good at marketing and visualizing. Can you take pictures of this for us? And she has a really good take on it. So she, that's her investment to help us in it. And, it's then they can feel part of the growth. They can feel part of the process. And just even like hearing the check-ins of how things are going. It really is a very important piece. Because when I was teaching, and there was a time when I was getting very overwhelmed and unhappy, honestly, because I was just kind of taking too much in and wasn't happy in the space that I was in emotionally at the time. And my daughter at one point said to me, because you've had a bad day, can you please stop taking it out on me? And she's like, are you mad at the kids, at your students' kids, or are you mad at me? Like, which is, and the lines were being blurred, and it was a good, wake up.
And it does that. I mean, there is that, right? Like when we used to say, so when you first walk in the door, if you haven't had a great day, just let your family know, it was just give me 3 minutes to shift my focus, or give me 5, or because I'm the kind typically, that I'm not, when it comes to boundaries, right? Like if my wife comes home, I'm ready to attack her. Like, hi, honey, blah, 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 and it's giving somebody that space to just decompress for a couple minutes or whatever their day was like. And that's being aware of others. So and it's hard to do when you've had a crappy day, and that's where you really have to, or, what is the thing you need to do on the drive home? Now, a lot of people are still working, by the way, and are still in offices. But for those of you at home, like if I'm in my office and I've got to walk across the hallway or up the stairs, give it a couple minutes if I need to shift my state. All right, that didn't go so well. So instead of going and complaining or venting, and I don't know what space, being on their space, what good music. All right, let's just throw on Led Zeppelin. Let's go back to when we were a team. Let's put on some, or maybe we want to mellow. Let's use, whatever it is, and break that state. It's like when we finish this call, I am literally going right outside and taking the grandkids on a walk. I can hear them running up and down, because they're very patient. They're good. And my wife's with them anyways. But, and I will probably just for a second go, and then go out there and say, hey guys, ready to go?
It's the switching of gears. It's but again, it's the going with the flow and allowing that to be, because if we don't acknowledge how we're feeling at the time, I mean, I find, if you don't acknowledge how you're feeling, then you just feel worse. So if you acknowledge it and then you know how to pivot it, even if, I recently was thinking about this the other day, because somebody that I'd known in high school, she actually would say, do you want to go out on the football field and have a primal scream?
Right. That's right. This
is in the 80s, we're 15 years old. I'm like, what the hell is she talking about? And then I was like, you know what? It feels so good to like be in the car or be wherever you are. Like I've done it in the car and I'm just like let out the scream and it just feels so good,
Right. Agreed. 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 So we're back to let it go. No.
Let it go. You got the whole slogan going on.
Right, right. No, it's so true. And that's the part about, the creativity and relax. And sometimes you do have to let it go and do what you have to do to shift the state. And for people that just means change what you're feeling at the moment, or move into a different feeling. Um, and it will help you with anything that you do, anywhere you're going to move, and makes a huge difference. Find the thing that you can do, or work with a group that could help you anchor different ways you're feeling when you're doing different things. And just realize it's all going to blow up in your face anyways, and have fun while you're doing it. That's all there is to it. It's never going to play out the way you think, no matter what you do, right? And that's okay. That's okay, as long as you're being of service and really helping others.
Yeah. So, Michael, as we move on to our third question, and then you'll let people know how they can find you and reach out to you.
Yeah, sounds good.
The third question, just had a brain blur for a minute. The third question is, why is creativity? I know we've touched on a lot of this, but to sum it up, so why is creativity important?
Let me think. So creativity is important. The great thing about creativity is the development of something new. That's where I was talking earlier about creating something out of nothing. Mm-hmm. I think the great part about it is that's how we, and look, there's going to be a million thoughts, and I don't want you to get barraged by a million emails on this one, but we have vaccines now because we have creativity. We have men launching in ships going to the moon, maybe to Mars, because we have creativity. We have music because we have creativity. We have art because we have creativity. And for me, we are all creative beings. Look, I already talked so much, I don't remember what the question was. But
yeah, but why is creativity even important? And
that's we go. It creates everything that we have ever known, ever will know, and ever will continue to know. And I think that's that creative side of how can I become more? How can I be of service to others? And it comes from all of that. And that's why we're here.
It is why we're here.
As long as we're here, wherever we go. Yeah.
That's what, again, in the classroom when kids would be like, oh my God, for art, why do I have to be here? I don't want to be here. But then when you put it in terms that are relatable, well, the sneakers that you're wearing, they were created by, a designer created them. Right. And then they went to a warehouse where they were made. The music that you make, that you love and listen to, a creative person came up with the lyrics, and then someone had created the technology in order for them to be able to record it, for you to then have the instrument to then be able to listen to it. The building that we're sitting in came from the idea of an architect, and then all the people with all the supplies in order to build it. So that whole trickle down effect, that it is everywhere. It's within everything. I like what you said. It creates everything that we know and all that we'll ever know.
Right. And for those of you who ever watched Seinfeld, we know Art Vandelay, but that's architects, and that's another day. So yes, that's exactly right. That is exactly right.
So, Michael, it has been so wonderful speaking with you. I so appreciate the time that you have given. And can you let people know how they can connect with you?
Yeah, very simple. We're all podcasters. We're all making a difference in the world. We do have a community that is going to take mentoring out to those who don't have it in the next year and a half. We've got an amazing group. So if you want to see more about what we're doing, just go to the Mentor, MENTOR, Studio, STUDIO. I once spelled that wrong, isn't that great? .com, thementorstudio.com. And you can see what we're doing, what we're creating. You can get on the podcast. And if the community sings to you, let us know. You can always write to info, and it's all on there. And I've really enjoyed being with you today, and, making a difference. And this is about creativity, because we're about to take the walk with the grandkids with binoculars and see what they see.
Oh, so, that's fun. Before we get off the line, what's the weather like by you?
Today actually is sunny and probably 44 degrees.
Okay.
So not bad, not bad at all. Not unlike one of the buddies I play EverQuest with, who told me he in Buffalo, he just got 5 feet of snow. So no, thank you.
Did
But
they really?
yeah, yeah, he got caught in one of those, the lake effect, and it hit his house big time in their whole neighborhood.
Yeah.
So yeah, no fun. But yeah, it's that. I want to thank you all too. And Hollis, you're a blessing. You're actually part of our community, and I think with your creative side and what you're going to bring, I'm so excited as you really are becoming a mentor with us, and I'm going to learn a lot from you.
Oh, thank you, Michael. That's really kind. I really appreciate that. I'm so excited to be in this space and just like you say, be of service and learn more and just be around a whole bunch of people that are there for the same reasons,
Yep, exactly,
Yeah. Yeah, we're in it
exactly.
together. So it's all
Yes,
about
we
the
are.
community.
It is the community and growing, and thank you all again. Thank everybody who's listened to this. Will be listening future generations to come because these things live forever, or at least as long as we have electricity. I just wanted to thank everybody for being on and spending
Yeah,
your time, because your time is meaningful.
it is so grateful. And this spaces and all spaces, it's all about inspiring each other, connecting and sharing stories. So please like, follow, and share, and so we can just get the word spread out. And as Michael said, just remember that it's never going to go exactly the way you plan. So just go with the flow.
Love it. Go with
Just
the flow.
go with it. So everybody have a wonderful day, evening, whatever it is in your part of the world. And we look forward to talking to you soon.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.